Dr. Hyun-woo Park walked into his laboratory at Seoul National University, just like he had done every morning for the past 15 years. Nothing seemed different about this. Tuesday morning, the coffee machine hummed in the corner, the lab mice squeaked softly in their cages, the morning sun streamed through the tall windows. Everything looked normal, but something was very wrong. Yin-woo stopped in front of the first cage and stared. His heart began beating faster. The mice inside looked at him with 4 eyes each, not sick eyes or damaged eyes, but perfect healthy eyes that blinked and moved like they had always been there. 2 eyes where there should be 2 eyes, and 2 more eyes right above them. He rubbed his own eyes hard. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he needed more coffee, but when he looked again, the mice still had 4 eyes each. They seemed to watch him with an intelligence that made his skin crawl. These were the same mice he had been using for basic medical research. Nothing special about them, just normal laboratory mice. Hyun-woo called his assistant, Manesio, who lived just 10 minutes away from the university. She arrived 30 minutes later, carrying 2 cups of coffee and complaining about traffic, but when she saw the mice, she dropped both cups. The hot coffee splashed across the white floor tiles. "The mice have 4 eyes, she whispered. Her voice shook as she spoke. "How is that possible? They were normal yesterday. I fed them myself before leaving." Hyun-woo pulled out his phone and called Dr. Chongmin Lee, who ran the animal research facility at Busan University. Chongmin answered on the first ring, but before Hyun-woo could speak, Chongmin started talking fast. "Hyun-woo, something crazy is happening here. Our lab rats grew extra tails overnight. Not 1 or 2 rats, but all of them. Every single rat in the facility has 2 tails now. The veterinarian says they are perfectly healthy, but this should not be possibly." Hyun-woo felt cold fear creep up his spine. He told Changmin about the mice with 4 eyes. They agreed to call other research facilities across South Korea. Within 2 hours, they had contacted 12 different laboratories. Every single one reported impossible mutations in their test animals. News got worse as the day went on. Dr. Sarah Kim from the Marine Biology Institute in Jeju called to report that her octopus specimens had developed extra brains, visible through their transparent heads like purple flowers. Dr. Jin-ho Park from the Agricultural College said his fruit flies had grown additional wings that worked perfectly. By evening, the reports were coming from around the world. Research facilities in Japan reported the same strange mutations in their animals. The Max Planck Institute in Germany called to describe mice that had developed echolocation abilities like bats. Scientists in Australia found that their lab rabbits had grown additional stomachs that seemed to digest food with impossible efficiency. Worked through the night collecting data and trying to understand what was happening. The mutations were not random. Each animal had developed something that made it more capable, more intelligent, more efficient, more aware. The changes followed no known pattern of genetics or evolution. They seemed to happen instantly between one day and the next. On Wednesday morning, Hyun-woo arrived at his lab to find something that made his blood freeze. The mice with 4 eyes were dead, not sick, not injured, but dead in a way he had never seen before. Their bodies looked perfect, healthy, pink skin, glossy fur, no signs of disease or trauma, but they had no life in them. Manesio found him standing in front of the empty cages crying. She had never seen her boss cry before. Hyun-woo was known for being calm and logical even during the most stressful experiments, but now he sobbed like a child. "They did not die from sickness," he said through his tears. "They just stopped being alive. Look at them. They look healthy, but there is nothing inside them anymore. It is like something took away the part that made them alive." The same reports came from every research facility they had contacted. The mutated animals were dying in the same strange way. Perfect bodies with no life inside them. By Thursday morning, every laboratory animal that had shown impossible mutations was dead. But the mutations had not stopped spreading. Jin Choi from the Seoul Zoo called Hyun-woo in a panic. The tigers had developed additional stripes that glowed softly in the dark. The elephants had grown extra trunks that moved independently. The monkeys showed intelligence levels that scared the zookeepers. Some had learned to write simple words in the dirt with sticks. "Need to evacuate the zoo," the Jin said, her voice cracked with fear. "The animals are changing too fast. We do not understand what is happening, but it feels dangerous." Reports flooded in from all over the world. The Amazon rainforest was experiencing MASS mutations in insects. Birds were developing extra beaks. Fish were growing additional fins that helped them swim faster than ever recorded. Domestic pets in cities around the globe were showing impossible changes overnight. Da Myung-hon, who worked for the World Health Organization, called an emergency meeting in Geneva. Scientists from 50 countries gathered to share their data. The picture that emerged terrified everyone in the room. This was not a local phenomenon. It was happening everywhere on Earth at the same time. Every living creature except humans was experiencing rapid, impossible mutations, followed by a strange death that left perfect bodies with no life inside them. The forests were beginning to go silent. Birds stopped singing. Insects stopped buzzing. Even the sound of wind through leaves seemed quieter as plants began to wither despite having perfect soil and weather conditions. Hyun-woo presented his findings to the International Committee. His voice was steady, but his hands shook as he pointed to charts and graphs showing the progression of what they had started calling the silent death. "Whatever is causing this," he said, "appears to be rewriting the basic instructions of life itself. Every species is attempting to evolve rapidly, but the changes are too fast and too extreme. The organisms cannot survive the transformation process. Dr. Elena Rodriguez from the Centers for Disease Control asked the question everyone was thinking: what about humans? Why are we not affected? Wu looked around the room at the worried faces of his colleagues. We do not know yet, he said quietly, but based on the pattern we are seeing, I believe we will start experiencing changes soon. We need to prepare ourselves for the possibility that humanity might be next. As if summoned by his words, a young researcher burst into the meeting room holding a tablet computer. Doctors, she said breathlessly, we just received reports from hospitals in 12 major cities. Patients are arriving with symptoms we have never seen before. Their DNA is changing. While we watched, the room fell silent. Everyone understood that whatever had been killing the animals around the world had finally reached humanity. The only question now was whether humans would survive what no other species had managed to overcome. Commander So-young Kim stood in the control room of the newly built Space Defense Center in Daejeon, staring at screens that showed data she could barely understand. 3 months had passed since the silent death began claiming every living thing on Earth except humans. The emergency facility had been constructed in just 6 weeks using every available resource from around the world. The first human changes had started appearing 2 weeks ago. Dr. Hyun-woo Park himself had been one of the first to show symptoms. His eyesight had improved dramatically overnight. He could now read text from across a large room that would have been impossible to see before. His reflexes had become so fast that he could catch falling objects before his conscious mind even registered they were falling. But unlike the animals, humans were not dying. Instead, they were becoming something more. So-young reviewed the latest reports from hospitals worldwide. The pattern was consistent across all continents. Humans were developing enhanced physical abilities, improved cognitive function, and sensory capabilities that exceeded normal human limits. Children seemed to adapt faster than adults. Some 5-year-olds were now solving mathematical problems that had previously challenged university professors. The strangest part was that these changes felt natural. People were not becoming sick or uncomfortable during their transformations. They simply woke up one morning able to do things they could not do the day before. Enhanced humans reported feeling more complete, as if they had been missing important parts of themselves their entire lives. Dr. Minho Lee had joined the Space Defense Center team after his research facility in Seoul was evacuated. He spent his days documenting the human transformations and trying to understand why humans were responding differently to whatever was affecting Earth. The genetic changes are happening at a speed that should be impossible, he explained to So-young. During their daily briefing, evolution typically takes thousands or millions of years, but we are seeing complete genetic restructuring happening within days, or even. So-young nodded as she looked at the data charts Minho had prepared. The graphs showed DNA modifications that seemed almost designed rather than random. Every change made humans more capable, more resilient, more intelligent. It was as if something was upgrading humanity rather than trying to destroy it. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Jae-wook Shin was monitoring deep space communications when he detected a signal unlike anything in their databases. The transmission was coming from beyond the solar system, and it was clearly artificial. Someone or something was sending organized information through space. So-young rushed to the communications center when Jae-wook called her. The signal was complex, but it followed mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence. She ordered every available linguist and cryptographer to work on decoding the message. Dr. Yoon-soo Wong led the translation team. She was one of the enhanced humans whose cognitive abilities had increased dramatically since the changes began. Her mind could process information at speeds that amazed even her colleagues. Within 18 hours, she had identified the basic structure of the alien language. The message is a warning, she told So-young with excitement and fear mixing in her voice. They are telling us about something they call the void sickness. They say it has been moving through the galaxy for thousands of years, destroying every civilization. It encountered. So-young felt her heart racing as Yoon-soo continued translating more of the message. That aliens seemed to belong to something called the Galactic Council, a group of different species that worked together across many star systems. They had been tracking the void sickness as it moved from one solar system to another, leaving only dead planets behind according to their records. Yoon-soo said, reading from her notes, the void sickness was created by an ancient race called the Architects. The Architects were facing extinction from some unknown threat and created the void sickness as their final weapon against the universe. If they could not survive, then nothing else would be allowed to exist either. The alien message contained detailed information about other civilizations that had encountered the void sickness. The Velek had been a powerful warrior race that controlled dozens of planets. When the void sickness reached their territory, their entire civilization vanished within 2 years. The Threnody were an ancient species that had survived multiple galactic disasters, but even they had evacuated entire sectors rather than face the plague. So-young studied the alien database with growing horror. Hundreds of intelligent species had encountered the void sickness over the millennia. Every single one had followed the same pattern: rapid mutations in all living things, followed by a complete extinction of complex life. The planets were left sterile with perfect ecosystems that contained no consciousness or awareness, but Earth was showing a different pattern. Dong-hyo Kim joined the team after his observatory detected more alien signals. These new transmissions seemed to be communications between different alien groups. They were discussing Earth and the unexpected development happening in the solar system. The aliens are confused, Dong-hyuk reported after working with Yoon-soo to translate the new messages. They expected Earth to go silent months ago according to their timeline, but instead they are detecting signs of increased activity and technological advancement. The alien communications revealed that the Galactic Council had been monitoring Earth since the void sickness arrived. They had protocols for dealing with infected planets, mainly involving long-range observation until all life signs disappeared. Then they would mark the planet as cleared and eventually allow new colonization efforts. Was not following the expected pattern. The alien scouts reported detecting human space launches, increased radio communications, and what appeared to be rapid technological development. These were impossible according to every previous encounter with the Void Sickness commander. So-young realized the implications of what they were learning. Humanity was not just surviving the universe killing plague, they were apparently thriving because of it. The weapon design too, and all conscious life was instead accelerating human development in ways that terrified alien civilizations with thousands of years more experience. The most recent alien transmission contained a chilling revelation. The Galactic Council was preparing to send investigation teams to Earth. They could not understand how any species could survive the void sickness, and they needed to determine if humanity represented a new threat to galactic security. Darvajin Park, who had recently joined the team after her genetics laboratory was destroyed, brought disturbing news from the medical facilities. The rate of human enhancement was accelerating. Children born after the void sickness arrival were showing abilities that went beyond anything previously recorded. Some could perceive electromagnetic fields with their eyes, others could hear radio frequencies without any equipment. We are not just adapting to survive the plague, the Jinn explained during the emergency council meeting. We are incorporating it into our biology. The void sickness is rewriting human DNA, but instead of killing us, it is making us into something new. So-young looked around the room at her team of enhanced humans. Each person showed subtle signs of the changes: improved posture, enhanced awareness, eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Everyone present could think faster, learn quicker, and solve problems that would have been impossible for baseline humans. The alien communications had made one thing clear: the Galactic Council considered the void sickness to be absolutely lethal to all forms of conscious life. No species in recorded galactic history had ever survived exposure, yet humanity was not only surviving but evolving into something that might be more advanced than the aliens themselves. As Swayan made the decision that would change everything, she ordered the construction of humanity's first interstellar communication array. If the aliens were coming to investigate Earth, then humanity needed to be ready to talk. She suspected that first contact was going to be very different from what either species expected. Dr. Minho Lee walked through the corridors of the Enhanced Human Research Center in Busan, carrying files that contained information he still could not fully believe. 6 months had passed since the void sickness reached Earth, and humanity was changing in ways that defied every law of biology he had studied during his 30-year career. The children were the most remarkable. 8-year-old Yoon-ji Chang sat in the testing room solving quantum physics equations on a whiteboard that covered an entire wall. Her small hands moved quickly across the surface, writing formulas that had taken human scientists decades to develop. She completed the work in less than 20 minutes, then turned to Minho with eyes that seemed to contain ancient wisdom. "The numbers talk to me," she said in her quiet voice. "They show me how everything connects. I can see the patterns that hold the universe together." Minho had tested Yoonji extensively over the past month. Her brain scans showed neural structures that did not exist in baseline humans. New pathways had formed overnight, connecting regions of her brain that should not communicate directly. The enhanced neural networks allowed her to process information at speeds that challenged the fastest computers. But Yoonji was not unique among the children born after the void sickness arrival. 10-year-old Woojin Park could perceive electromagnetic fields with his naked eyes. He described Wi-Fi signals as colorful streams flowing through the air, and could locate electronic devices by following their energy signatures. 9-year-old Sora Kim had developed perfect memory recall. She could remember every conversation, every book she had read, and every experience she had lived with complete clarity. The enhanced children were not just smarter than previous generations. They possessed entirely new categories of intelligence that allowed them to understand concepts that had previously been beyond human comprehension. Minho documented every case carefully. His research showed that the void sickness was not randomly mutating human DNA. Instead, it appeared to be following a specific upgrade protocol, as if someone had designed a perfect enhancement system for human consciousness. Humans were also experiencing remarkable changes, but at a slower pace. Dr. Jin Yu had developed enhanced cardiovascular efficiency that allowed her to run marathons without becoming tired. Her heart rate remained steady even during extreme physical exertion. Professor Sung Ho Han could now hear conversations from across large rooms and distinguish between dozens of simultaneous audio sources. The most fascinating cases involved sensory evolution. Captain Haiwon Kim from the Korean Air Force had developed the ability to perceive gravitational fluctuations. She could sense changes in gravitational fields that allowed her to predict weather patterns days in advance. Her enhanced spatial awareness made her an incredibly skilled pilot, who could navigate through storms that would ground other aircraft. Kung-Soo Lee from the Korea Institute of Science and Technology had grown new sensory organs, patches of specialized cells on his arms that could detect quantum uncertainty. He could literally see probability waves and predict the outcomes of random events with startling accuracy. Minho compiled his research into reports that he sent to enhanced human communities around the world. Similar developments were happening. On every continent, the pattern was consistent across all cultures and geographic regions. Humanity was evolving into something that had never existed in the known universe. The transformation was not limited to individuals. Enhanced humans began working together in ways that created collective intelligence networks. When groups of enhanced children focused on the same problem, they could solve challenges that would have required supercomputers. Small teams of enhanced adults could design and build advanced technology using intuitive understanding rather than traditional engineering methods. Dre Park led a group of 20 enhanced scientists who developed a new form of energy generation by observing quantum fluctuations at the subatomic level. They built their first prototype reactor using materials and techniques that conventional science said should not work. The reactor produced clean energy with efficiency levels that exceeded theoretical maximums. Enhanced humans also began developing what could only be described as technological telepathy. Groups working on the same projects reported sharing thoughts and insights without verbal communication. They could sense each other's emotional states and coordinate complex activities through subtle cues that baseline humans could not perceive. The enhanced individuals were becoming networked in ways that created a form of distributed consciousness. Minho realized that humanity was not just surviving the void sickness, they were incorporating it into their evolutionary development. The plague that had destroyed every other known civilization was being used by human biology as a tool for rapid advancement. The implications terrified and excited him in equal measure. Humans retained their individual personalities and free will, but they also possessed access to capabilities that seemed almost magical. They could perceive aspects of reality that had been invisible to baseline humans and manipulate natural forces in ways that appeared to violate physical laws. Children like Yoonji were developing abilities that allowed them to interact directly with quantum systems. She could influence probability outcomes through focused attention and seemed to understand the fundamental nature of reality at levels that challenged the greatest philosophers and physicists in human history. Minho documented cases of enhanced humans who could heal injuries through bioelectric manipulation. Others could influence plant growth by interacting with cellular quantum states. Some could even affect weather patterns by understanding and adjusting atmospheric energy flows. The enhanced humans were not becoming less human, they were becoming more human than had ever been possible before. The void sickness had removed biological limitations that had constrained human potential for millions of years. By the end of his 6th month of research, Minho understood that humanity was experiencing the most rapid evolutionary leap in the history of life on Earth. The species that emerged from the void sickness would be as different from baseline humans as humans were from their earliest ancestors. But unlike natural evolution, this transformation was happening within a single generation. Children were being born with capabilities that represented millions of years of potential development compressed into months. The void sickness had accelerated human evolution to speeds that should have been impossible. Prepared his final report, knowing that it would change how humanity understood itself. The void sickness was not just a plague, it was an evolutionary catalyst that had transformed humanity into something unprecedented in galactic history. And humans were no longer limited by the biological constraints that had defined their species. They possessed cognitive abilities, sensory capabilities, and technological intuition that exceeded anything in the known universe. The weapon designed to end all conscious life had instead created a form of consciousness that might be immune to extinction. As Minho finished writing his conclusions, he realized that humanity had unknowingly passed a test that no other species had survived. The void sickness was not just a plague, it was an examination that determined which forms of life were ready to transcend their original limitations. Humanity had not just passed the test, they had graduated to something entirely new. Ambassador Ji-hoon Yoon stood in the main conference room of the International Space Station, looking at the massive alien ship that had appeared in Earth orbit 3 days ago. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever imagined, stretching nearly 5 kilometers in length with surfaces that seemed to shift between solid metal and flowing liquid. The ship had arrived without warning, emerging from what appeared to be folded space with technology that defied human understanding. Was one of the enhanced humans selected to represent Earth during first contact. His cognitive abilities had increased dramatically over the past year, allowing him to learn and master new languages within hours of exposure. The genetic modifications caused by the void sickness had given him perfect memory recall, enhanced pattern recognition, and intuitive understanding of complex systems. The alien delegation had requested permission to board the space station 12 hours ago. Their message was transmitted in perfect Korean, Chinese, English, and 17 other human languages. The aliens claimed to be representatives of the Galactic Council conducting a routine investigation of what they called a plague zone, but their tone suggested they expected to find something very different from what they encountered. That airlock opened with a soft hiss and 3 alien beings entered the conference room. The first was tall and graceful with 4 arms and skin that glowed with soft blue light. The second was shorter with multiple eyes arranged around its head and what appeared to be natural armor plating. The third looked almost human except for its height and the silver-colored blood visible through translucent skin. The tall blue being stepped forward and spoke in perfect Korean. "I am Council Member Velkani of the 3 Nodi. This is Security Chief Drakmor of the Velic and Science Officer Zionet of the Altari. We have come to investigate the plague effects on your planet Jihun." Felt his enhanced cognitive abilities analyzing the aliens' speech patterns, body language, and subtle energy signatures. The enhancements allowed him to perceive information that would have been invisible to baseline humans. He could sense the aliens' emotional states and detect that they were experiencing something between confusion and fear. "Welcome to Earth," he replied, using the same formal tone. "I am Ambassador Jihun Yoon representing the United Earth Government. We understand you have questions about recent developments on our planet." Velkani exchanged glances with the other aliens in a way that suggested telepathic communication. The blue being's eyes widened as it processed Jihun's response. "You are speaking our language," the alien said with obvious shock. "Your species should not possess the cognitive capacity to master Threnody linguistic structures." "How is this possibly?" Jihun smiled, knowing that his response would surprise them even more. "The void sickness enhanced our learning abilities along with many other improvements. We have developed capabilities that allow us to understand and communicate using any language system." We encounter the 3 aliens stepped backward in unison. Drakmor, the Velak security chief, made sounds that might have been their equivalent of gasping. Science Officer Zionet began scanning Jihun with a handheld device that projected holographic displays of his biological systems. "Impossible," Velkani whispered. "The void sickness destroys all complex life forms. We have documented its effects on over 300 civilizations. No species has ever survived exposure, much less benefited from it." Jihun gestured toward the observation windows that showed Earth below the planet's surface was covered with thriving cities, expanded agricultural zones, and construction projects that were visible from orbit. Enhanced humans had developed new technologies that allowed them to build structures and systems that exceeded anything from the pre-plague era. "As you can see," Jihun said, "our planet is not only surviving but expanding. We have used the genetic modifications from the void sickness to accelerate our technological and biological development." The aliens spent the next 6 hours examining data that Jihun and his enhanced colleagues had prepared. The information included genetic analysis of enhanced humans, technological developments achieved through enhanced cognitive abilities, and documentation of new sensory capabilities that had emerged from the plague. Each piece of evidence seemed to increase the aliens' distress. Velkani studied holographic displays showing enhanced human children solving mathematical problems that had challenged galactic civilizations for millennia. 8-year-old Youngji Chang demonstrated her ability to perceive quantum fluctuations, while 10-year-old Woojin Park showed how he could manipulate electromagnetic fields through direct interactions. "It should not be possible," the Threnody Council member repeated. "Your species lacks the biological foundation for these developments. The void sickness is designed to overwhelm consciousness, not enhance its security." Chief Drakmor was examining video footage of enhanced human teams working together. The recordings showed groups of humans coordinating complex activities through what appeared to be telepathic communication and collective problem-solving that created results beyond the sum of individual contributions. "The Velic are warrior species with genetic modifications developed over millions of years," Drakmor said in a voice that sounded like controlled panic. "Your species has achieved in months what should require geological ages of evolution." Science Officer Zionet was focused on the medical data showing how enhanced humans had developed new sensory organs and cognitive structures. The Altari scientist appeared to be running calculations on the handheld device while muttering in languages that Jihun was learning to understand. "In real time, according to our model," Zionet announced, "the energy requirements for these genetic modifications should have killed your entire species within days. The biological systems needed to support enhanced consciousness require resources that exceed planetary capacity." Jihun called for Dr. Minho Lee to join the meeting. Minho had spent months documenting the enhanced human transformation and had developed theories about how the process worked. His research suggested that the void sickness had not just modified human genetics but had also changed how human biology interacted with quantum fields and zero-point energy. "The enhanced humans are drawing power from sources that baseline science cannot detect," Minho explained to the alien delegation. "We believe the genetic modifications allow us to access energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. This gives us virtually unlimited biological resources for consciousness expansion." The 3 aliens held another telepathic, a conference that lasted several minutes. Jihun could sense their growing panic through his enhanced perception abilities. The concept that humans had learned to draw energy from quantum vacuum was apparently more disturbing to them than the mere survival of the plague of Volcani finally broke the silence. In 12,000 years of recorded galactic history, no species has ever survived the void sickness. The plague was designed by the architects to be perfect. It targets the fundamental processes that allow consciousness to emerge from biological complexity. The Threnody Council member looked directly at Ji-hoon with what appeared to be genuine fear. Your species has not just survived. You have transcended the biological limitations that make the plague possible. You have evolved beyond the reach of the ultimate weapon. Ji-hoon realized the full implications of what the alien was saying. Humanity had unknowingly accomplished something that the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy considered impossible. They had survived and evolved through a weapon designed to end all conscious life in the universe. The enhanced humans were not just a new stage of human evolution, they were something entirely unprecedented in galactic history, a form of consciousness that was immune to the universe's most perfect extinction device. The alien delegation prepared to leave after completing their investigation. Volcani made a final statement that would change the relationship between Earth and the galactic community. The Galactic Council will need to revise its understanding of consciousness, evolution, and the limits of biological possibility. Your species has achieved something that challenges our most fundamental assumptions about life in the universe. As the alien ship departed Earth orbit, Ji-hoon understood that humanity had passed a test they did not know they were taking. The void sickness had been the universe's final examination, and enhanced humans had graduated to a level of existence that even ancient galactic civilizations could not comprehend. Captain Donghan Kim guided his enhanced human crew through the dead space around the Kepler 442 system, where 3 planets had been silent for over 200 years according to Galactic Council records. The void sickness had swept through this region during the height of the Velek civilization, leaving behind perfectly preserved worlds that contained no trace of conscious life. His ship, the New Earth, was humanity first. Interstellar vessel built using technology that enhanced humans had developed through their transformed understanding of physics. The vessel could fold space-time to travel faster than light, and could generate energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. The alien civilizations that had provided the technology, the specifications, were still trying to understand how humans had figured out engineering principles that exceeded their own capabilities. Dr. The Jin Park stood in the ship's medical bay preparing treatment protocols that she and her enhanced colleagues that had developed over the past year. The procedures were based on humanity's unique adaptation to the void sickness and could potentially reverse the plague effects on other species that had been dormant, but not completely destroyed. The first planet in the Kepler system had been home to the Zephyrians, a butterfly-like species that had achieved spaceflight 3,000 years before humans discovered fire. The Galactic Council records described them as peaceful explorers who had established colonies across 17 star systems before the void sickness reached their homeworld Onghine. Landed the New Earth on the planet's surface near what had been the Zephyrian capital city. The structures were beautiful crystalline towers that spiraled toward the sky in patterns that seemed to follow mathematical formulas. The buildings were perfectly preserved, showing no signs of decay or damage, but the city was completely empty of life. Enhanced human team members spread out through the city using their advanced sensory abilities to search for any traces of surviving biological systems. The enhanced humans could perceive quantum signatures that indicated where consciousness had once existed, and could detect dormant genetic material that might still be recoverable. Lieutenant Soman Han was the first to find evidence of surviving Zephyrian genetics. She used her ability to see quantum fluctuations to locate a crystalline structure that contained preserved genetic information. The building appeared to be some kind of genetic archive where the Zephyrians had stored biological data about their species. Dr. Jin examined the genetic samples using techniques that enhanced humans had developed through their own transformation. The Zephyrian DNA showed the same patterns of void sickness infection that had affected every other species, but the genetic material was not completely destroyed. The plague put their consciousness into a dormant state. She explained to Dong, over the communication system, their genetic systems are intact, but they need the specific quantum signatures that allow consciousness to emerge from biological complexity. Enhanced humans had learned that consciousness was not just a product of brain chemistry but involved quantum processes that connected biological systems to fundamental forces in the universe. The void sickness disrupted these quantum connections, causing consciousness to collapse even when the physical body remained. Healthagen began the treatment process using medical techniques that would have seemed like magic to baseline humans. She could manipulate bioelectric fields to restart dormant genetic processes and could influence quantum states to restore the connections between biological systems and consciousness. The first Zephyrian began to stir after 6 hours of treatment. The butterfly-like being opened eyes that glowed with soft golden light and looked around with confusion that quickly turned to wonder. The creature made sounds that enhanced human linguists quickly identified as expressions of joy and amazement. More Zephyrians were found in other preservation structures throughout the city. Within 3 days, Thajin and her medical team had revived over 200 individuals from the species that had been considered extinct for centuries. The Zephyrians were amazed to learn that consciousness could be restored after being dormant for so long, but the most remarkable discovery, it came when the Zephyrians learned about the enhanced humans. Butterfly beings possessed natural telepathic abilities that allowed them to sense the quantum signatures of other conscious entities. When they encountered the enhanced humans, they experienced what could only be described as recognition and joy. "You are like us, but more," one of the Zephyrian leaders communicated telepathically to Dong Haiyan. "You have consciousness that extends beyond biological limitations. We can sense the quantum connections that make you immune to the plague that destroyed so many species." Enhanced humans realized that their transformation had given them abilities that complemented rather than replaced the capabilities of other species. They could work with aliens like the Zephyrians to create forms of cooperation that exceeded what any single species could achieve. Over the following months, enhanced human teams traveled to other plague-affected worlds. The pattern was consistent across different star systems. Many species had not been completely destroyed by the void sickness, but had been put into dormant states that could be reversed using the treatment techniques developed from humanity. Unique adaptation for Threnody, who had survived the plague by evacuating entire sectors, were amazed to learn that their abandoned colonies could be restored. The enhanced humans worked with Threnody scientists to revive ancient cities and restart civilizations that had been lost for millennia. Velocquaria species discovered that enhanced humans could help them reclaim planets that had been written off as permanently contaminated. The plague-affected Veloc worlds contained dormant genetic material that could be awakened using quantum manipulation techniques that only enhanced humans possessed. Minho Lee established the first interspecies medical center on a restored world in the Vega system. Enhanced humans worked alongside alien scientists to develop new treatments and to understand how consciousness could be protected from future plague outbreaks. Their enhanced human medical teams discovered that their abilities were not limited to treating void sickness effects. They could also help alien species overcome other genetic problems and evolutionary limitations that had constrained their development for millions of years. Humanity had become the galactic immune system. Enhanced human colonies spread throughout the previously quarantined sectors, bringing life back to worlds that had been sterile for centuries. The humans could survive in plague-contaminated environments that would kill other species instantly and could restore ecosystems that had been damaged beyond conventional repair. The Galactic Council established new protocols that recognized enhanced humans as the primary response team for plague-related emergencies. Species that had considered humanity to be primitive newcomers now requested human assistance for their most challenging biological and consciousness-related problems. Captain Dong Haiyan received a communication from Earth containing news that made him smile. Enhanced human children were being born with abilities that exceeded even the first generation of plague survivors. The new children could perceive and manipulate aspects of reality that challenged the understanding of the most advanced alien civilizations. 8-year-old Yunji Chang had developed the ability to communicate directly with quantum systems, allowing her to influence probability outcomes across interstellar distances. 10-year-old Wu Jin Park could now perceive the quantum entanglement patterns that connected conscious beings throughout the galaxy. The enhanced human children were not just immune to the void sickness, they represented a form of consciousness that could prevent future plague outbreaks by maintaining the quantum connections that allowed awareness to emerge from biological systems. Humanity had evolved beyond the reach of extinction. The universe's greatest weapon had become humanity's greatest gift. Enhanced humans had transformed from potential victims into the galaxy protectors and healers. The species that had been considered young and inexperienced had become the guardians of consciousness throughout the known universes. Dong Haiyan prepared to depart for another plague-affected world. He reflected on how completely everything had changed. The void sickness had been designed to end all conscious life, but it had instead created a form of consciousness that was dedicated to preserving and restoring life throughout the galaxy. Enhanced humans had become something that the original architects never could have imagined, immortal guardians who used the power of their ultimate weapon to heal the wounds it had created across the universe.